Hi, I'm Jen, and welcome to Christian Fire Poppy. We just had on July 13th, 2024, a failed assassination attempt on the life of Donald Trump. He was shot in the ear. We saw the blood on his face, and it is crazy what I'm going to show you today. The things that are happening in the sky are insanely similar to what is happening on the earth on the exact day and time that it's happening. So if you look in Stellarium, and I will show you how to check this out yourself, you can see the names of what's called minor planets or asteroids, and we have the elements of Donald, an ear, the whitehouse, and surrounded in those areas, we have the Sun, Mercury, and Venus clustered together right on top of Venus. We have past presidents. It's right next to an asteroid called Whitehouse. We have the elements of Ronald Reagan, who was shot, Theodore Roosevelt, who a lot of people are drawing parallels to Trump. Theodore Roosevelt was shot, and he got right back up and continued his speech. And then, of course, you can see John F. Kennedy. You can see the name Kennedy here. These are clustered so tightly on top of Venus, right next to Whitehouse. And that is just scratching the surface of all of the themed names that are clustered together in a way that I can't help but see a story of things happening in the heavens in likeness of things on the earth, as it says in Revelation 12, verse 1. So let's just take a look at this. So, signs in the heaven in likeness of things on the earth. Is that possible? Is that a thing? This is something that a theory, I guess, I've been exploring over time. And I feel like it just keeps going. And I keep vacillating between thinking, no, I'm just making connections that it doesn't really mean anything. It's just random connections, coincidences. But I feel like it just keeps happening over and over again. So I'll show it to you. I mean, at its least, this is just my creative celestial connections art that can just add meaning and art to the events that are happening on the earth. At best, this could be considered an amazing miracle from God. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's just something I'm going to continue to watch. And if this is something that God wants us to see, then I think it will just continue and get more and more obvious as we see events happening on the earth. And I think it'll just get more obvious. So we'll just watch. You can decide. Let me know if you think this is just a coincidence, my creative imagination, or if this could be something like this, as it says in the Joseph Smith translation of Revelation 12. And there appeared a great sign in heaven in likeness of things on the earth. This is talking about the Revelation 12 sign. And we've been looking at various signs in the heavens. The first one was a depiction of this Revelation 12 woman with the sun. So the Lord told Moses that the stars serve as signs in Genesis 1:14. In English, sign carries various meanings similar to the Hebrew and Greek words in the Bible, including token, miracle, or warning, all rooted in the concept of something representing or reminding of another thing. So as we look at these names of asteroids and minor planets, you think about it as kind of representing what is happening on the earth, like a little story in the sky. It's noteworthy that constellations are also referred to as signs, and translators sometimes overlook their dual meaning. For instance, the prophet Joseph Smith corrected wonder in Revelation 12, 1 and 3 to sign, which aligns better with the actual Greek word. So if this sounds weird to you, I understand. It has felt weird to me this whole time, but not, because the scriptures are full of this language and pointing it to it. So I feel like the scriptures keep bringing me back to this idea, even though just logically it feels weird. So It's it says in the scriptures that his signs are in the sun, moon, and stars. So in Luke 21:25, it says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament sheweth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night sheweth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard." That's Psalms 19:1-3. In Alma 30, verse 44, it says, "The scriptures are laid before thee, and all things to note there is a God. Yea, even the earth and its motion, yea, and also all the planets which move in their regular form, do witness that there is a supreme creator." So I want you to understand my purpose in sharing this. It is for the glory of God, and we know that all things can denote there is a God. So even if I held up a leaf and I started to expound about how this was a depiction of the glory of God, you really could do that with anything. So it's not to prove that I have some perfect interpretation of the heavens or any special knowledge. This is just anybody can go onto Stellarium and see this, and it to me, it really does point to the glory of God, how his work, he is a part of the fabric of the universe. And all these wonderful things, I mean, all the blessings of the earth, and even when things are crazy, I guess when I see this in the heavens, it reminds me that God is in control of everything and he's aware of everything all the time. So we really have no need to fear, no matter how chaotic things get. And in Genesis 1:14 it says, "And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day for the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days, and for years." In Psalms 8:3 it says, "When I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars, which thou hast ordained. O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth." Now, I've talked about this on previous videos that President Nelson, he quoted this part in the Doctrine and Covenants that says, "Nothing shall be withheld from the saints." And if you go to the footnotes of this, Doctrine and Covenants 121 verses 28, it says that nothing shall be withheld. And if you go down a few verses, it talks specifically about the sun, moon, stars, and about their revolutions, appointed days, months, years, their glories. That's really what I'm interested in, is just pointing out the glories and wonder of God. I feel like there's no miracle, no coincidence that is too hard for God to orchestrate. And the reason I found this is because Sister Dennis in the last General Conference told us to study the talks of our prophet, including the beautiful teachings in the footnotes. And his President Nelson's words beautiful. And okay, so let me share this with you guys. So, one of the biggest standout asteroids, or minor planets, as you might call them, is one called Donald Kessler. And now, if you go to Stellarium and you search the word Donald, there are 9 Donalds that pop up. And the reason Donald Kessler would be the perfect one to represent Trump is because it was Ronald Kessler who has known Trump and First Lady Melania Trump for 2 decades and understands him better than any other journalist. He wrote a book, a biography about Trump in the White House, and it includes an exclusive interview with Trump. This is the only interview he says he has given or will give for a book as president. I also included this for you to see with your eyes. And I'm going to show you why on the next slide, but what is the medical term auricula? So auricula is the actual anatomical term for the external ear. Physiology and anatomy were some of my favorite classes. I was really good at that, and I loved it when I was in college because I love making connections, and that helps me to remember things. And so I'll show you in just a second. We know that the idea of Trump and an ear are a critical part of the story that was happening on the earth on July 13th, 2024. So we have Donald Trump, who was nearly assassinated, and this idea that we're exploring of the likeness of the earth, things in the heaven looking just like the likeness of the events on the earth. So we have right here in the center of Gemini. Gemini is the twins. I will be talking about the significance there towards the end, but we have Donald Kessler, so Kessler, who did his biography. Right in the center, we have the ear, which is the auricula, the professional term for an ear. And we have the White House right here. And this part is just absolutely mind-blowing. We have these past presidents who have either been assassinated, JFK, so Kennedy is the name of the asteroid. We have Ronald, it's Ronald HSU, but there we go, Ronald Reagan, who was shot. And we also have the Theodore Roosevelt. So that is pretty wild. Let's take a look. Oh, and we also, if we look in the sun, it seems like, I mean, I'm sure from Trump's perspective, he's thinking God must have had compassion on him because he is lucky to be alive. So you have compassion here in the sun. And we have McCormick. McCormick was the senator, the running for senator, who was Trump had just announced that Senator McCormick was going to get up on the stage. And that was right when the shot happened. So we'll talk about that here in a minute. We also know that the name of the actual shooter who shot Trump, his name was Thomas. And there are more than one Thomases in Stellarium. So it's kind of interesting that this Thomas Bohr would be right here next to Mercury in this area because Burr, you know that it was Aaron Burr who shot Hamilton. And there's the pistol, the same one that popped up with Joseph Smith. Now, it was a rifle that was used, but we're looking at things that represent, right? So gun, pistol right here next to Mercury. So Sun, Venus, and Mercury, and these very pertinent words. And we have the angel because like I said, if you were Donald Trump, you'd be thinking, oh, God had compassion on me. I must have had an angel watching out for me. And let's take a look. So this part is really wild too. So I'm going to show you this on Stellarium in just a minute, all of this, but the moon perfectly, I'm talking perfectly aligns with Spica, which is the wheat in the hand of the woman to the exact hour that Trump is shot on July 13th. It was at 5 o'clock. And the minutes don't matter so much, but the moon moves so fast that every hour you'll see a movement. So let me show you what's happening. And we also have these words, gun, blood, bless, and shot imagery. So if you go to Jupiter, we have, again, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by Booth, was his last name, John Booth. And Trump is from Queens. We have gun imagery, gun, gun, Murden, which means murderous, etymology of that word, and blood. And there you go, Roosevelt, right there, Uranus and Mars. Jupiter clustered in this area. So okay, let me show you on Stellarium. Okay, so here you can see Ronald. Show you really quickly how these presidents who had been either assassinated or an attempted assassination are clustered right here on Venus. So, and watch how they move. So Ronald, we go right here. Actually, I take it back. I'll come to this. Let's look at the moon first because I have the time set to easily show you. We go to the moon. You see that it's perfectly in Spica right here. Watch this. Look at that. Okay, now this is July 13th. And I looked it up, and Stellarium will always show the time and sync it with your local time. So this is synced to the Pacific Northwest. So we have to add 3 hours to get to Pennsylvania time. So that would be 20. And I read that it was about 6 minutes after he started his speech. So we're assuming it's at about 5:06 p.m. Like I said, the minutes don't matter, but the hour does. So here we are, right at the hour. This would be 5 p.m. Pennsylvania time. And if we just go, say, up a few hours, watch this, just 1 hour. Here you go. It's already off of Spica, going that way. And back to the 20, perfectly on Spica. And if we go before, there, look, just 1 hour and it's off. not amazing? The reason I looked for this actually was because when we were looking at the signs in the heaven related to the martyrdom of Joseph Smith, we had this same visual where we had the moon that was perfectly timed and intersecting with the asteroid Ford. And it was Governor Ford who really was responsible that let Joseph Smith be martyred on that day. So, okay, let's go back to our Ronald Reagan. So we have Ronald right here. We have Kennedy. Kennedy. And Theodore. So you can see there's no not perfect Theodora, but there are no other options. So again, if we're looking in a symbolic sense, so something to represent Theodore Roosevelt, there it is, all three clustered tightly against Venus. Now let's take a look at Thomas Burr. So Thomas Burr, and you can see there are a lot of Thomases, but Burr stuck out and seemed like the right fit because that is the name of Aaron Burr who shot Hamilton. So perfect. Perfect way to distinguish which Thomas to pick. So Thomas Burr right here next to Mercury in the claw of the crab. And we have, again, if we're looking at just representation of pistol, right? A gun. It's not exactly the rifle that was used, but there isn't anything. Look right there, perfectly in the claw of the crab next to the name of the murderer. And we have, oh, let me show you really quick that there's no rifle. So see if we were looking for a rifle that does not exist. And let me show you White House. White House. It's right here with all our clustering action and the words just fit perfectly. Let's show you auricula, which means ear, right here. Remember we had Donald Kessler. Kessler wrote Trump's biography while he was in the White House, so Donald Kessler. And let me show you how the word compassion. I really think that, I mean, if that happened to you, you would say that was an act of God. God had compassion on you right here in the sun. So, okay, here we go. Back to our slides because there is a lot to share. Okay, so, oh, I didn't show you this. There's shot well and bless. When I go back to Stellarium, I can show you more of this. So you have Uranus and Mars, and you have Roosevelt. Trump is from Queens. You have Booth, who shot Abraham Lincoln, Jupiter. You have, again, these guns, gun and Murden, gun. So let me just show you that really fast. Okay. So we talked about this in previous videos. The closest word, this is etymology, meaning of murden is to be murderous. So here we have that there. And we have Roosevelt, an attempted assassination, and John Wilkes Booth, who had the successful, look how close that is to Jupiter, successful assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And we have these gun words. So gun, we have gun, and let's look at shot. So see for shot, there's just Shotaro or Shotwell. So a well done shot. well done in that it did not kill Donald Trump. I mean, sadly, it did kill someone. It's really, really awful. So we have this shot. We have the moon perfectly over Spica. But on the other hand, on the other side of that shot, we have a blessing that President Trump was not killed. Former President Trump was not killed. So pretty interesting. Okay, back to the slides. So we have Donald, the auriculate ear, the White House. We talked about McCormick. So the Senate candidate McCormick had just been invited on stage when the shots ring out. I looked for Melania Trump, so the wife of President Trump. The word closest to that was Melan, so Melantheos. Theos actually means to accuse. So really, rather than accusing Melania Trump, is saying, really, she's full of joy that her husband is still alive. And she's saying, courage and common sense must unite Americans. So I looked for unite and I saw this unitas, unite, meaning of that is to unite, right here near the sun, and compassion. And also, what happened? We have Ella Fenor. I was thinking, well, a symbol for Republicans. So Trump is kind of this figurehead for the Republican Party. So there's no word elephant, but there is Ella Fenor. And that actually means, when you break it apart, elephant and man. So elephant man, the man representing the elephant party. And really what happened on this day is going to galvanize the party in support for him. So I looked up galvanized. We had galvani right here next to this Donald Kessler. And yeah, you can go ahead and just take a look at those. I'm not going to show you every single one because I don't want this video to be super long, but you can take a look on Stellarium yourself and search for it. And we have this word angel here. So we have the shooter, Thomas, Burr, the pistol, near Mercury, and an angel. All right, so here are the names of all the political assassinations or near assassinations. We have JFK, Ronald Reagan, Roosevelt, Booth, and Aaron Burr. So we already went over those. I showed you these. It's pretty wild how they're clustered here. And then over here in Taurus, you have Roosevelt's, the guns, and Murden. Now, just a quick flashback. This Murden has been showing up on days when people are being murdered, and it's clustered right there in the sun and all of the other names that really go with the theme. So the first time I noticed this was Christian Pentecost. That was 40 days after the eclipse that we just had this year. So on May 19th, 2024, we had the president of Iran who was murdered. So Murden, murderousness. His name was President Raisi. So we have Rice here. We had Jupiter, Uranus, the sun, and the location where this happened was the president of Iran was traveling to Azerbaijan. So we have Azerbaijan, Iran, Murden, really close to his name, Rice, Risa. And the same thing on the day that Joseph Smith was martyred or murdered, we have Murden here, right next to the sun. We have Joseph Church. So again, to kind of differentiate which Joseph out of all the asteroids, Church fits pretty well for Joseph Smith. We have Emma, his wife, who is celestial, the sun, and we have Mars, and the sun. And then we talked about, there were all kinds of other things, a whole video about each, well, about this one. And let's go to, so where is Donald Kessler, the asteroid minor planet? You can call it an asteroid or a minor planet on election day 2024. So I know after you're seeing this, if you've watched it this far and you feel like maybe there's something to it, or you're curious or you have interest, it may have crossed your mind already. Well, if Donald Kessler, if this is a representation of Donald Trump, like what is happening in the sky on election day? Because you can look at what's happening in the future. And I have to say, this is where I tread really carefully. So I want to be very, very clear. I am not predicting anything. I'm not saying anything is going to happen, and I'm not going to predict that something, whether Trump is going to win or not. But since I know you're going to take a look at it anyways, I'll just show you really quick, save you time, and you can see what I found really quickly. I didn't spend a lot of time because who knows what will happen that day. I mean, will Trump even be alive at that point? We don't know. So this really doesn't tell us anything concrete, and I think it's much more interesting to look at this and examine it after events happen so we know what to look for. But there are some just right away interesting things that are happening. If you go to Election Day, 11/6/2024, at the end of the day, you have Donald Kessler right here by the mouth of the lion, and right on top of it, I looked for the word winner to see, because a winner, there is not a word winner, but this was the closest word to winner, and wisser means wise, so like wise winner. And then there's that one, if we're representing that as Melania Trump, really close by. If you were to move forward months and years, this Melania one and this Donald Kessler one will be much farther apart and going all over. And the really unique part about this was that there was a comet. So this is very, very unique. That there was a comet. It's called the 3DA Biela, Biela comet, and it was right here in the middle of the lion on this day. So I looked up what Biela means, and it means a rod. And in the Bible, the rod appears in several ways, including as a symbol of authority, a tool for guidance, and a weapon of rule. So looking at, I mean, that fits really well to the theme of being a leader. So crazy stuff. Like I said, I'm not saying that this means anything in particular, but I thought you might want to just see that, and we will review it after Election Day. I'm sure we'll see a lot more interesting things. So we saw the name Donald Kessler, and it is in Gemini with the twins. And so I was immediately curious if there was a connection between President Trump and the story of Jacob and Esau, the biblical twins. Sure enough, I immediately found an Israel 365 news article, and this is the title of it. It says, "What's the connection between the biblical Esau and President Trump?" And I found that the word Yashin is the most interesting surname derived from the ancient Hebrew given name Yahav, meaning following after. In the Bible, Jacob was the name of the twin brother of Esau who took advantage of the latter's hunger and impetuousness to persuade him to part with his birthright for a mess of pottage. So we have Jacob, who was true to the covenants, and we have Esau, who was not, who traded it for just a carnal pleasure, a mess of pottage. It also talks about him being adulterous. And so let's see what Israel 365 has to say about Trump and Esau. There's a whole article. If you go to Israel365news.com, what's connection biblical Esau, President Trump? It's a whole long article. I just included a few snippets. It says, the other nation in Rebekah's womb came from Esau, who, as Rabbi Kessin explains, became Edom, which became Rome, which became Christianity, which became Western civilization. In Genesis 25:23, it is written, and the older shall serve the younger. The older is a reference to Esau, and the younger Yaakov. So you have this, the first shall be last, the last shall be first, imagery of the Jews and the Gentiles. Though they were twins, Esau emerged first, as is plainly stated in Genesis. Trump's purpose on a spiritual level is to turn from Ya'aved, oppressing Israel and the Jewish people, to Ya'avod, cooperating with and assisting Israel and the Jewish people. This potential has already been actualized with Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and his plan to move the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. This was before he did that. So this is when Israel was in a complete, just happy uproar, excited that Trump was going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. And so Rabbi Kassin concluded this portion of his remarks with a spiritual explanation for the virulent opposition to Trump. The hateful rhetoric is a function of his messianic mission. He said the source of the extreme opposition to Trump is because Trump is being used as one of God's instruments in rehabilitating the relationship between the biblical Jacob and Esau. Now, I'm not sharing this in that I fully believe what he's saying, just as a point of interest that this is how a major Jewish rabbi views the connection of Trump to Esau. So we talked about that word yashin and how it connects to, that is derives from the word Yaakov, which is Jacob. So we have Yashin, Jacob, but we look at these twins as being Jacob here in the sun and compassion, and Esau. We think of this more like Trump, and we have Donald Kessler right here, the two twins, Jacob and Esau. It's kind of an interesting visual. So because that was such a strong connection, a very interesting connection in my mind about thinking, Trump and Esau, I wanted to dive into what is the message of Esau? What did the scripture say about Esau? And let's Okay, sorry, I had a little glitch, a recording issue, so we are going to go through this again. I had to re-record this section with some computer problems, so we are going to speed through this a bit because I am running out of time. So let's look at the message of Esau. It's interesting how Esau in Hebrews 12, right here in the middle, you can see, lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau. So that's kind of interesting concerning since we're drawing this parallel between Esau and Donald Trump, I think what he is very well known for right now with the lawsuit and everything that has happened with him and Stormy Daniels. So let's read a little bit of the surrounding scriptures and what it is talking about, the lessons linked to Esau. So it starts out by saying, we are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us. That is a lesson that we can learn from Jacob and Esau, to be more like Jacob and not like Esau, who gave way to the sins that easily beset him, to run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. So remember, trials, hard things, whether it's for the nation or in your life, it's because God loves you and he wants you to help turn you back to him. So we know that Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. So Esau was supposed to have the birthright, but due to his not cherishing it and valuing it, he lost it to Jacob. So it says, for ye know how that afterward, when he would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place of repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears. So this idea of Esau crying with tears at what was lost. For ye are not come unto the mount that might be touched, and that burned with fire, nor unto blackness and darkness and tempest. Now, the scriptures are connecting and drawing a parallel to what Esau did with what the children of Israel did with Moses. So, in the days of Moses, the children of Israel refused to go up to Mount Sinai, even though they were invited by Moses, the prophet. It says, and the sound of a trumpet and the voice of words, which voice they that heard entreated that the word should not be spoken to them any more. So they did not want to hear the voice or the word of Lord directly. They wanted Moses to do the hard work and to just spoon feed them everything they needed to know. Verse 20 says, for they could not endure that which was commanded. And if so much as a beast touched the mountain, now the mountain is a likeness of the temple, place where we go to be close to God. And it says, it shall be stoned or thrust through with a dart. And so terrible was the sight that Moses said, I exceedingly fear and quake. But ye are come unto Mount Sion, and unto the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to an innumerable company of angels. So we know that this heavenly Jerusalem will be attained in the last days. It says, to the general assembly and the church of the firstborn, which are written in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of just men made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling that speaketh better things than that of Abel. See that ye refuse not him that speaketh. So here's our big message. Do not refuse him that speaketh, as the children of Israel did. That was kind of the message of the story, how they did not go up to Mount Sinai, and it was just Moses and Aaron, even though they had been invited, for they were too scared. They didn't want to do the work. They didn't want to worry about the requirements. And it says, for if they escaped not, who refused him that spake on earth, much more shall not we escape, if we turn away from him that speaketh from heaven, whose voice then shook the earth. But now he hath promised, saying, yet once more I shake not the earth only, but also heaven. So you have this imagery of the earth and heaven being shaken. And this word, yet once more, signifieth the removing of those things that are shaken, as of things that are made, that those things which cannot be shaken may remain. Wherefore we, receiving a kingdom which cannot be moved, let us have grace, whereby we may serve God acceptably, with reverence and godly fear. For our God is a consuming fire. And this is the same imagery that Moses talks about with the children of Israel up on the mount. So, consuming fire of God that scared them. So, Israel in Moses' days, we are told that they were treasured possessions, but the people themselves, as a whole, were too scared to go up to the mountain. In Exodus 19, 1-6, God designates Israel as a treasured possession, a royal priesthood, a holy nation contingent upon their obedience to his voice, and covenant given to Abraham, upheld by faith. So God desires this priestly nation of Israel to ascend the mountain, aka like temple in our days, for worship after consecrating themselves and awaiting his call, signaled by a trumpet blast on the third day. So in the scriptures, it talks about that trumpet blast, which would have been Pentecost. Instead of obeying, the people gripped by fear, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled, as it says in the scriptures. So they were trembling, quaking, scared, stood far from God at the mountain's base. So you can read Exodus chapter 19, chapter 20, Deuteronomy chapter 5. This fear drove them to distance themselves from God rather than drawing nearer. So that led to only Moses and Aaron ascending Mount Sinai. Now there's this commentary that I copy and pasted from the church website from Exodus 19:12. It's about how in the scripture it talks about these set bounds around Mount Sinai. It says, just as the Lord set bounds around Mount Sinai, he has also set bounds around his temples. Only those who live worthy of a temple recommend are qualified to pass those bounds and enjoy the blessings that can be received only in temples. You can read more at this. This is from the Old Testament Seminary Teacher Study Guide. Okay, so priesthood and the stars. So since we're talking about the stars and we're talking about Israel and the priesthood, I thought I would tie it in with these amazing scriptures. So Abraham and Enoch's priesthood learning included knowledge of planets and stars. And how cool is that? In Abraham chapter 1, verse 31, it says, but the records of the fathers, even the patriarchs, concerning the right of priesthood, the Lord my God preserved in mine own hands. Therefore, a knowledge of the beginning of the creation, and also of the planets, and of the stars, as they were made known unto the fathers, have I kept even unto this day. And I shall endeavor to write some of these things upon this record, for the benefit of my posterity that shall come after me. And then Abraham 3:10, and it is given unto thee to know the set time of all the stars that are set to give light, until thou come near unto the throne of God. Now, as I share these scriptures and I'm sharing these patterns that I see in the sky, I want to just be very clear that I do not know the perfect interpretation of these things. I'm sharing these patterns. I like this word endeavor. I'm endeavoring to learn, and no doubt I'm going to get so many things that are not significant connections. But if we handle it in that light, knowing that even those things, even if all of it was just not significant, and if I spoke to God and he said, nope, none of that was significant. The purpose of it is to see the glory of God and to worship him. I mean, I could hold up a leaf and expound all day upon how the leaf reminds me of Jesus Christ and the priesthood and the life-giving beauty of God. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so if we hold it in that light, at its worst, we're just endeavoring in the principle that all things testify of Jesus Christ. And maybe at its very best, some of this is part of this great miracle that's happening in the sky, because I know that God can do anything and that he can influence all the people of the world, all the elements, all the planets and stars with just a word. And we might not even realize how much he is in the details of the entire universe. And when I think about that and the glory of God, it just, I'm thinking less about myself. I'm thinking less about my own problems, my own little tiny world, how amazing and big the world and the heavens and the universe are, and how God has it all under control. So when we see this chaos of assassinations or near assassinations and all this division, we can remember that God's got it all under control. He knows what is happening, and he has the knowledge to guide and help us in our lives. So let's also read this. This was just a little snippet that I thought sounded pretty. And on the topic, it is from the apocryphal book of 2nd Enoch 4. About the angels who govern the stars, they led before my face the elders, the rulers of the stellar orders. And they showed me the 200 angels who govern the stars and the heavenly combinations. And they fly with their wings and do the rounds of all the planets. That's some pretty wondrous, glorious imagery. So Moses reminds Israel that they are treasures. So we're talking about the children of Israel, how they're treasures. And this reminded me of our prophet, President Nelson, and his talk, Spiritual Treasure. He gave this to the women in October of 2019. And it really kind of just wraps up this theme and these connections of priesthood and spiritual treasure. So he said, the heavens are just as open to women who are endowed with God's power flowing from their priesthood covenants as they are to men who bear the priesthood. If you are endowed but not currently married to a man who bears the priesthood, and someone says to you, I'm sorry, you don't have the priesthood in your home, please understand that that statement is incorrect. You may not have a priesthood bearer in your home, but you have received and made sacred covenants with God in his temple. From those covenants flows an endowment of his priesthood power upon you. It was also in harmony that Joseph received a revelation manifesting the Lord's will to Emma. The Lord instructed Emma to expound the scriptures, to exhort the church, to receive the Holy Ghost, and to spend her time learning much. Emma was also counseled to lay aside the things of this world and seek for the things of a better. Now, just side note, that sounds like think celestial. And to hold fast to her covenants with God. The Lord concluded his instruction with these compelling words. This is my voice unto all. And now, as I share these connections and we talk about stars and the planets, remember that those things that we're talking about are really just pointing our minds to the most important things that are truly invisible. That is our relationships, love, the unseen connections and stories that make up our lives with our spouses, with our children, with our families, with our ward, our close friends. And so as we look at these things, don't forget that it's truly those invisible things that are most important. And I think that's the purpose of signs and those type of things, is to help us reflect. That we give this a visual to remember that those really important things, our connections, our relationship with Jesus Christ and our families, the priesthood power that allows us to bless the people that we love, the blessings of Abraham that we can share with those we love, the personal revelation that we get from a God who loves us, and missionary work and miracles, because we love everyone and we want to share this love with everyone. And miracles are God manifesting, usually saving us from problems here on the earth in the form of miracles. And in President Nelson's first talk as prophet, he quoted Elder Maxwell, and I really love this quote. It says, "To those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, it is clear that the Father and the Son are giving away the secrets of the universe." So we have a prophet who's giving us the secrets of the universe as well. One of those secrets is finding happiness in serving, reaching out to the one who may be feeling lost or alone. So even if you looked at interesting signs in the heaven and wonders, as far as your own personal happiness and salvation, it's not going to do you much good. So it is reminding you to do these wondrous things, which are reaching out to the one. This is going to bring you closer to Jesus Christ and closer to people in love and connection. So thank you for joining me today in Matthew 6:32. It says, "Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow, they toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these." So let's bloom despite the smoke of confusion and the flames of world chaos. Things like near assassinations, like true fire poppies. A Zion field of many fire poppies will inspire hope and joy in the gospel. Join us for more fiery passion and preparedness as we fly into the second coming of Jesus Christ.